Let's come back to our vegans. And there is this group of people, and pretty large group of people online, that are on a plant-based only diet, which typically is pretty high carb. There is a group of them that are apparently doing very well on that diet when it comes to health and wellness. What do you think that is? Is it just short-term gains and then eventually things are going to dwindle, or is it going from a standard type diet and this being an upgrade from that?
It's all that.
Like,
And
let's address what's going on there with these people that apparently are getting healthier on that diet.
absolutely. And I tell people all the time on social media, changing from a standard American junk diet to a vegan diet, that is a step in the right direction. It's the first step towards a proper human diet. And I love it when somebody goes vegan. I absolutely applaud them and I'm proud of them because that means they're thinking about food, Jesse. That means they're actually thinking before they consume. That's that's the biggest first step, I think. When you start to think about your food, you're a different person at that point. Then every morsel, you're like, wait a minute, what is this? That's good. That's a great first step. Now, if there's actually a study done by Neil Bernard, who's a noted vegan. He's got his own little agent, a physicians committee for truth or something. Uh, I don't know about the truth part, but
Responsible medicine, I
that's
think.
it. Responsible medicine. Yeah, I don't know about the responsible part, but he actually did a study that showed that people, when they adopted a vegan diet, their A1C improved. And for many people, that's absolutely the case. Their A1C may start out being 9 or 8. When they go on a whole food, plant based vegan diet, it'll come down, but it'll only come down to 7 or 6.5, right? And so he published that study. He was proud of that. And I just tweeted yesterday, if the carnivore diet would only get your A1C down to 6.5 or 7, I would be ashamed. I definitely wouldn't publish that. I'd be looking for a new job. I'd be like, well, if that's as good as it does, I don't want to be associated with that. But he actually published that. And so, yes, a vegan diet can lower your A1C, but you will seldom see a vegan who was previously type 2 diabetic. They're very shy about sharing their current A1C because it's typically still elevated. It's still 5.9, 6.5, 6.9. It did come down from 14 because they stopped all the highly processed, just abject junk carbohydrates, and they started to eat much more complex carbohydrates. That slowed down the glucose uptake. There's a lot more fiber. Therefore, they're not eating as much non-fibrous carbohydrates. Yeah, and their A1C went from 11 down to 7 or 7.5. That is an improvement, absolutely. But you're not normal. You still have type 2 diabetes or you still have bad pre-diabetes. And then one thing you will never see the vegan share is their fasting insulin. And also you'll never hear the vegan cardiologists. They won't even reply to a comment about fasting insulin. They won't even justify it because I think they know that if you start checking fasting insulins, you're going to see immediately that, yeah, their A1C came down from 11 to 7.5, but their insulin is still sky high. And I'm sorry, but that's not the solution. I want the A1C to be normal and I want the fasting insulin to be normal too, because that's the numbers you see when you check a hunter gatherer population who's super, super healthy and they have no heart disease whatsoever. Both of them are normal, and you can't have them both normal. On the most well balanced, well formulated vegan diet, you're going to have hyperinsulinemia in anybody over the age of 30. They're either going to be in starvation mode where they're literally just not eating enough food and they're very frail. They've got osteopenia. Their teeth are getting loose. Their skin is saggy and looks terrible. If they're actually eating enough food, they're going to have hyperinsulinemia. And we saw a huge pushback from the vegan cardiology community on Twitter when we started recommending continuous glucose monitors. It's like you need a CGM and you want to keep that line as normal for as many hours a day as possible. And they were in an uproar, Jesse. They're like, you don't need that. This is gonna cause eating disorders. It's like, what are you talking about? People wanting to have a normal blood sugar, that's an eating disorder now? I don't think so. I think that's people being interested in their health, motivated to improve their health. I think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing in any way. And you get pushed back immediately, or typically you get ignored if you talk about a fasting insulin level, because they know it's going to be high. And then how are they going to explain to their patient, well, yeah, you're not as severe a type 2 diabetic now as you were. You're on 3 diabetic medications and your fasting insulin is also high. They don't want to have that conversation, so they just pretend like fasting insulin doesn't exist. And it's sad, and I hope it's changing a little bit each day, and that's part of the reason I do the work I do, is to try to change that paradigm. But currently, that's the way it is if you have a doctor who believes in a plant-based diet. And I don't want any doctor out there to blindly believe in any diet, including carnivore or keto. I don't want you to blindly believe that. I want you to understand the physiology behind it. Then if you think you understand the physiology, then you can promote a specific diet, and then we can have a conversation about that. But if you just believe it because somebody you look up to said it, you're not a very good doctor.
You took the words out of my mouth. I'm glad you went to the fasting insulin, because when we start talking hemoglobin A1C and bringing that down, it could just be the body compensating, making more insulin, regulating that blood sugar, and really masking what's happening behind the scenes. So if we don't get to the fasting insulin, we're not really getting to the root of what's happening.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's why the vegan cardiologists don't want to talk about a fasting insulin. They think it's a superfluous test that doesn't serve any purpose. But if you understand the human physiology of glucose, insulin, and glucagon, you immediately understand why the fasting insulin or a C-peptide, that's mandatory. If you're going to pretend to manage any patient's pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes or MODY or LADA, if you're going to pretend to be the doctor in that situation and manage that, you damn well better be checking a fasting insulin and or C-peptide, or you're just a bystander with an opinion. That's all you are, because you're not checking the bedrock physiology of what's going on in that patient's body.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
Any disease you can think of that's chronic and progressive, it's being caused by hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, and chronic inappropriate levels of inflammation. Your default setting is good health. And if you're not enjoying good health,